Okay, for those of you who are watching live, can we please just pretend the last 12 minutes didn't happen? And for those of you who are just blissfully, blithely tuning into this recording, no, we haven't had any technical issues for the last 12 minutes, I promise, and everything has been absolutely fine. Cue cheesy grin. Anyway, first comment goes to Alex, who says, "Hello everyone, the best sense of the century so far, how exciting." Oh, I love the fact that you've just copy-pasted your old comment. "In celebration of this sublime Sunday treat, I'm wearing vintage Supreme by Patu today." Phew. Thank you for tuning in, one and all, to episode 530 of Love at First Scent. I was feeling nervous because I was hoping that there would be no technological issues, and clearly my nervousness and paranoia were justified, but never mind. We are here with lots and lots of comments. 1213 is the new 12, says Omar. Yes, it is. Those of you watching the recording will have no clue what we're talking about, and ignorance is bliss. Abuzar says, cancelled plans to watch The Brutalist in 70mm as it clashed with this. Ooh, God. The Brutalist is an amazing film, and the only reason I haven't yet published a review of it on my Substack is because I can't quite kind of bring myself to articulate everything I feel about it. Anyway, we cannot allow ourselves to go off on too many tangents today. I will very, very quickly say that if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, please consider doing so. If you would like to find out how you can support my work, you should see a link to my Ko-fi page in the video description below, and indeed you will also see a link to my Substack. Okay, folks, what have I got in store for you today? Now, as 2024 started coming to a close, a few of you got in touch with me to say that you like the idea of us doing a sort of top 10 or a rundown of the best perfumes of the decade so far, so effectively of the last 5 years. And I thought this was a great idea, and I started looking into it, and then I suddenly thought to myself, hang on, it's 2025, we're a quarter of the way through the century. Maybe we ought to actually do the best perfumes of the century so far. And with quaking heart and much trembling of hand, that is exactly what we are doing today. This is going to be the granddaddy of all preambles coming your way today, because as you will imagine, there's going to be quite a bit of sort of backstory to get through. Okay, so this is how this is going to work. The rundown is a top 25, and it's going to be split across 5 videos. This is part 1. We will take a break to come back for part 2, and then parts 3, 4 and 5 will, all being well, technology permitting, parts 3, 4 and 5 will be broadcast tomorrow at roughly the same time. I will confirm the time ASAP. This is the video in which I'm going to talk a little bit about the selection criteria, if I can use such an elevated term, and I will talk a little bit about why certain scents have made it and why certain scents haven't, and how I went about compiling the list. But I promise to do my very best to not keep repeating all of that preamble type stuff in parts 2, 3, 4 and 5, and just get on with the list. So this is where you should all start. Okay, start with part 1. There is also going to be, Mariam says, ambitious theme, wonder how many Mals will be on the list. He founded his label exactly in 2000. Oh, we've kind of got a sneaky way around that one, Mariam. There is also going to be an accompanying Substack article, which will go live tomorrow after the conclusion of the final video. And in the Substack article, I'm sort of offering a kind of a fairly brief, fairly succinct overview of the main trends and themes and highlights, lowlights of the last 25 years. But what I have also done in the Substack article is kind of extended the top 25 and given, I suppose, effectively a kind of long list of some of the scents that I considered. So do subscribe to the Substack. Okay, this is a 2-day perfume festival, says Alex. Yes, it is. Right. This is easily the toughest list I have ever compiled, and there were points over the last few weeks where I thought I actually cannot do this without major heart palpitations or offending people, upsetting people, and I had to put in some limiting factors at first, or a limiting factor. because I thought I couldn't literally just kind of look at a list of the entirety of the perfume output of the last 25 years and just pick what I thought were the 25 best scents. I mean, I suppose that would have been the sort of most puristly correct way of doing it, but I wanted to go for something different. I thought that I cannot keep up with these comments, by the way, folks. I'm going to have to come back to them later. Gavin, yes, please point out anything I may have missed, but maybe do that after you've had a look at the Substack, if indeed you do read the Substack. There will probably be lots of things I've missed. So at first I thought, well, maybe a good limiting factor might be to just go year by year and choose the best perfume of each year. But I kind of didn't like that idea because I thought that might be a little bit artificial. So the limiting factor that we have imposed is that we are permitted only one perfume per brand. That is how we're playing it. That's how we get around the fact that, for example, Frederic Malle in the year 2000 and in this, subsequent years after that gave us lots of beautiful perfumes, that we've had lots of beautiful perfumes from Hermès and Amouage and, name your brand. So that is how we're playing it. One perfume per brand. In a way, I guess it's also an endorsement of that brand, an endorsement of that brand's work over the last 25 years. But not just, because there are also a few that I've included here where I, maybe haven't been particularly impressed with the rest of their output, but I did think that it's one perfume deserved a mention. I've actually made notes to sort of make sure that I cover everything here. 25 years, as it turns out, is a long time. And there were a lot of perfumes released, a lot of brands, and a lot of new brands came along. And if you stop and think about it, you realise that actually the last quarter of a century represents... what's this? Alex says, the last time I was this excited was when I saw Lord of the Rings extended for the first time. Gavin says, I can see why you've done this. I would have made Mal a lot of my list. Yeah, and I think let's just spread the love a little bit. But on the Substack, as I've gone through brand by brand, I've also got a little section where I've said, please make sure you also smell, and I've listed some of the other perfumes from the particular from each brand that I think are worth checking out. So as I say, the last quarter century, the last 25 years represent the entirety of the output of Frederic Malle. We've talked a lot about Frederic Malle already, but not just Frederic Malle. Etalib d'Orange, Parfum d'Empire, Les Indemodables, Eris, Maison Francis Kurkdjian, Crivelli, all of those brands and more were created within the last 25 years. And also, of course, the last 25 years was the era of the more established, the more mainstream brands giving us their exclusives, the Chanel exclusives, the Dior Collection Privé, name your brand, they've probably got an exclusive. So that makes it more difficult. I have tried wherever possible to stick to scents that are still in production. Of course, when you're kind of looking over a 25-year span, then things like reformulation becomes a bit of an issue, discontinuation becomes a bit of an issue, but I've tried to go as much as possible for scents that are still available and are still in good shape. But again, over on the Substack, in my kind of extended long list, I present some perfumes that are no longer with us. And then finally, the criteria, such as it is. As you know, I'm very, very good at overthinking stuff. And I thought, if I overthink this list, it'll never happen. We will never get to a 25. So I have tried not to overthink. And I guess I've gone with the sort of idea of the best fit. Now, this idea of the concept of a best fit, I think, comes up in lots of disciplines. I've come across it the most, I suppose, in my work as, oh, Filippo, that's very, very, very kind, really, really sweet, but you don't know what's on the list yet. You may want to take that back. Rachel says the brand rule is a good way to include some great small brands. Yes, I think so as well, and that was part of the thinking. So this idea of best fit is something that I have to think about a lot, at least twice a year when I do examining. So with my education hat on, I mark a lot of exam papers, exam scripts, and particularly when you're marking essays, you have your criteria, but you can't always necessarily make a particular candidate's response fit the criteria perfectly, because you think, okay, well, it's got a little bit of this, it's got a little bit of that, I can see that it's touching on a few points from this criterion, and so you kind of have to go for a sort of best fit that you feel happy with. And that's what I've sort of gone for. And I guess the main factors that I considered while going for this best fit is kind of going brand by brand, thinking about whether trying to consider which perfumes have turned out to have some kind of social importance, cultural importance, influence, whether in terms of the style, whether in terms of the composition, they've turned out to be influential. I've also taken into consideration to some extent, but not just, whether they turned out to be successful at the tills. And also, I've as you know, I've always sort of said when compiling these lists that subjectivity is not a dirty word. I have gone with my personal tastes. I think a lot of you come to this channel because you're interested in what I think of certain perfumes, as opposed to somebody kind of trying to present some sort of gospel declaration of whether a perfume is good or bad. So yes, somewhere kind of thinking, okay, well, was it important? Was it successful? Do I like it? So I can tell you now, for instance, that Bleu de Chanel is not going to be on this list, even though it has turned out to be extremely influential and important and successful for Chanel. There you go. There's your sneak preview. Bleu de Chanel is not going to be on the list. Oh, Danny Duberstein. That's a good handle. Great concept, Dariush. Hope to discover something new or interesting. That's really, really kind. Thank you so much, Danny. Stick around. Hopefully you will learn something, or be introduced to a brand that you haven't been introduced to before. And also, obviously, I am really, really curious to know what your top 25s would be. So wait till we get to the end of part 5 and then come back and say to me, I can't believe you haven't included this, I can't believe you haven't included that. Okay, I think we should start. I am so nervous about this. Hang on, let me turn the page. Did I say everything I wanted to say? Yes, I think I have. Look, I actually covered everything. Turn the page, here we go. Okay, what are the 5 they were presenting here? I think I would like to start, just kind of ease my way in. Start with the one that I think every single one of you who's ever watched a video on this channel will be able to guess is on here. Shall I sort of wait 5 seconds to see what the absolute most obvious one, in a way? Which creed will be in the list, says Alex. Gavin, well done. Gavin, you know me so well. Let us start with the Frederic Malle. This was released, as you know, because we only talked about it a little while ago, in 2010, and composed by Dominique Ropion. This is, of course, Portrait of a Lady from Frederic Malle. This, by the way, in case you're wondering, is the 15th anniversary limited edition that we talked about on this channel a little while ago. Musique Picnic says, are we starting at the bottom of the list? This list is not in order, okay? I could not bring myself to sort of, go from 25 and work my way up. These are just the best 25 today, according to me. Ask me next week, the list might be slightly different. Okay, I'm not going to dwell on this one too much, because I've talked about Portrait of a Lady so much already. Shall we start? Let's give her pride of place there. You could actually go back to one of the more recent videos. Dushan says, Sir Jamal from Morocco, I've done better than that. I get what you did there. Johnny says, no, we need the last 10 ranked, s'il vous plaît. I couldn't possibly do that. I think I would just collapse. It's not Musc Ravageur, says Spaced Out. Oh, see, this is when people are going to start complaining and moaning, and I've gone with Portrait. I think in a way the story of Portrait offers and the story of Frederic Malle to some extent offers a very, very good summation of the last 25 years, because when it was launched, By the way, in case you're wondering, in case you have never heard me talk about portrait before, this is just a really, really beautiful rose, pepper, frankincense, patchouli combination. It's a big, buxom, tempestuous, impassioned rose, and it's one of the most beautiful roses ever, and it's one of the most beautiful things Dominique Ropion has ever done. And we'll kind of leave it at that and maybe move on. But City Slacker says, it's fascinating how my nose has changed over the years. I used to actually hate portrait. Now I love it. Interesting, interesting. Danny says, many more people would have taken issue if it wasn't portrait. Yeah, you're probably right there, actually. Yes, you're probably right. Alex says, it can only be portrait if there is one best Frederick Mal. I mean, I'm glad you agree. Lots of people will disagree. But I guess where I was going with saying that it sort of sums up the last 25 years is that it came along when it was launched, this monster hit for a truly independent brand created by somebody who has perfume running through his veins, and it's now a product given to us by one of the world's biggest multinationals. And I think that's a kind of an interesting arc that perfume has taken, and it's an arc that tells us a lot about what's happened over the last 25 years. Joanna says, portrait is unfortunately too rosy for me. That's okay, we all have our own tastes. Rachel says, portrait is not my personal favourite Mal, but I completely understand the choice. But you have to tell us what your favourite Mal is. Yes, thank you, Gavin, we need to know. Okay, shall we move on? Okay, because we have got the first one. We only have 24 left to go. Okay, what should I do next? Right, well, this is kind of an interesting one, because the original version of this particular scent came out in this century, and it was much loved, and as far as I know, it was quite successful. Zarban, that's really, really kind. I love the little fox. I'm going to stare at that for a few minutes and calm myself down. Thank you. Dans tes bras, says Rachel. See, I have come to appreciate that one more over the years. Beautiful, beautiful. Anyway, so the original version of this scent came out this century, stuck around for a little while, and then went away, and everybody was very upset because they thought, right, that's it. We're not going to, have that scent with us anymore. But then you can start guessing what this might be. The original perfumer set up his own brand with his two sons, and decided that as one of the first scents he would release would be basically a slightly tweaked, slightly reworked of that scent that we all missed. So, from Parle-moi de Parfum, from the year 2018, we have Papyrus Oud, composed by none other than Michel Almerac. And actually, funnily enough, one of the times I interviewed Frederick Mal, he said that the one perfumer he wishes he could have worked with, but for whatever reason it never happened, and he feels now that kind of time has passed and it won't happen, is the one perfumer is Michel Almerac, because he really rates him very highly. And rightly so. For those of you who may not be aware, the original perfume I was talking about is Gucci Pour Homme, which I think was from, I'm going to say 2003, something like that, but somebody correct me if I'm wrong. That was in the days when Tom Ford was doing creative direction at Gucci. I have no idea why it didn't stick around. I think it's absolutely gorgeous, that original scent. But thank goodness we've got Papyrus Oud. Gavin says, I'm going to have to smell everything I have not smelt on this list, starting with this. Yes, and I think what we ought to do is meet up in London, everybody else welcome. We go perfume shop, ice cream parlour, perfume shop, ice cream parlour, perfume shop, ice cream parlour. I think this needs to happen. I think in order to celebrate this list, we somehow need to make it happen. But one of you needs to volunteer to organise it, and maybe we need to set a date and go on a perfume gelato profumo-thon. This could be a thing. We could. I'm being serious. We should do this. We should do this. Okay. Oh, I'm on for that, says Gavin. Yeah, we need to talk about it. We need to make it happen. Can you imagine all of us like descending on Jalupo somewhere, or the other one that you sent me the link for? I'd buy a ticket for that. No, there would be no tickets. It would just be a friendly thing. Everybody would come along. You just have to buy me the odd ice cream, maybe. Johnny says, oh my God, head implodes. Ice cream and perfume day. Let's talk about it. Anyway, Papyrus Oud. If Portrait is this absolutely perfect, gorgeous presentation of rose, frankincense, patchouli, Papyrus Oud is this impeccably balanced presentation of the sort of forces pulling in opposite directions and creating this beautiful equilibrium. You've got pink pepper again, you've got frankincense, you've got cedar, I suppose, in place of the rose, and you've also got amber. It is one of the most sophisticated things I've ever smelled. Michele says, have to map it out. Would frozen taste buds affect olfaction? Let's find out. I don't think they would, but let's find out. Sounds like a divine shopping expedition, says Claire. I think we should do it. I think we need to do it. And Andrea says, let's do this in Italy. Oh, yes. Actually, for that, I would sell tickets so that you can cover my flight. But where in Italy? I mean, that's where would be the best place? I don't know, Milan or so. Carrying on with the list then, because I've got to bear in mind that I've got to do another video as well. We're going to, again, kind of go back in time to something that was launched, was much loved, and then stuck around, and then kind of disappeared, and then it was sort of brought back. Although it was always under the same brand and always with the same name. So this is originally from 2004, from Dior. This is going to be the Dior entry. The Dior entry was an interesting one. Dior Homme, says K. Okay, a good moment to have a little bit of a digression. Had the original Dior Homme by Olivier Polge still been in decent shape and readily available and around, there is absolutely no question that I would have included it. It is, I think, one of the most beautiful things ever made, one of my personal favourites, one of the absolute best things released by Dior ever, not just in the last quarter century. But yeah, it's not what it was. And if you go on the forums and things, you will know that people will say that if you want the original, you need to look for the one with the silver stem. So unfortunately, I couldn't include that one. But yes, I think some people have guessed that the one I'm actually referring to is Eau Noire, which was originally composed by Francis Kurkdjian, who back then was not in-house perfumer at Dior, and then it stuck around, and they released a kind of a version that was coloured green, which I suppose must have had François Demachy's fingerprints all over it. It was very, very good. And then when Kurkdjian when Kurkdjian became in-house perfumer at Dior, one of the first things that he did was to properly bring back Eau Noire, to remove the colouring and to take it back to the state that he wanted it to be in. Which perfumer has most entries, says Gavin? You will find out. There is one actually who is a kind of clear winner, if we want to use that term. But, let's not. I'd rather not. So, Eau Noire from Dior. That's our Dior entry. Spaced Out says, I'm sure it was a tough choice between this and Leather Oud. Again, Leather Oud is, as far as I'm aware, gone. It's not on the official Dior website. I adore Leather Oud, as you know. I mean, a lot of the time, the decision was made for me by the fact that I'd say, well, actually, my favourite that this brand has released in the last 25 years is Perfume X. Is it still available? Oh, no, it isn't. And so then I sort of have to cast the net wider. But I'm more than happy to be including Eau Noire. It is beautiful. Can you still buy this, says Danny? Yes, as far as I know, you can. Eau Noire is amazing, says Filippo. Actual formulation is not as good as it was. Okay, well, things have changed. Gavin is keeping a tally for us. Ropion 1, Almerac 1, Captain Kirk 1 as well. Eau Noire is really, really aptly named because there is a kind of blackness to it, a darkness to it, almost a brownness to it. It's coffee and licorice and lavender and immortelle. There's something slightly salacious about it and also urbane at the same time. It's got that kind of... Oh, and lavender. Did I say lavender? We should have said lavender as well. Which I guess takes you into fougère territory, which always starts kind of hinting at hairy-chested territory. But it's always extremely well behaved, very, very, very attractive, really nicely done, and I should wear it more often. I have a green coloured bottle as well somewhere, which I think is very, very well done. Thomas says, Tant pis LVMH and Dior killed Patou, so we'll never get another great Patou. That's definitely one of the saddest stories of the last 25 years, to think that, seemingly there is no hope that we will ever have joy, or even, do you remember at one point, when was it, about, I don't know, 12 years ago or so, there's a reissue of those heritage ones where they did Calais and Vacances. That was good. Alex says, I adore the original Miss Dior from the 70s. Yeah, a lot of people do. That's another one that's been changed again and again and again. Okay, and number 4 on the list. Well, as I was smelling this one, I thought that there was something kind of satyr-like, faun-like about it. So that brings us to the choice from État Libre d'Orange. This was hard actually, because they have given us some good pieces of work. I won't say which one I nearly included, because then I don't want to get into that game. But I nearly included another one, and then I thought, no, actually, even though the brand is not particularly especially known for this one, and I don't think it's been one of their biggest hits, it really, really, really is stunning. Perhaps underrated. It is from État Libre d'Orange, The Afternoon of a Faun, composed by Ralph Schwieger. And when was this from? From 2012. I was really, really taken away with this from the moment I smelt it. I think it is somehow very convincingly Ballet Russe. It's very, very convincingly Nijinsky. It's very convincingly retro and modern at the same time. Very sensuous. Going from the Eau Noire to Faun, actually, they both feature quite a strong note of immortelle, but the Faun becomes really quite mossy. I remember at the time thinking that it was one of the more convincing modern chypres I'd smelt for a long time, and yet the marketing didn't particularly make anything of the fact that you could very much read it as a chypre, which I kind of thought was ironic, because so many scents out there that call themselves chypre don't really seem to have much of an olfactory profile of what some of us would consider to be chypre. But this is really gorgeous, really, really beautiful rose note. This one has also got something a little bit lascivious about it, but also somehow innocent. It sums up that idea of a faun quite well. It's green, it's mossy, it's rosy, it's earthy, it's also bright. Really beautiful. If you haven't tried this one and you enjoy État Libre d'Orange, then you really, really need to get your hands on this one. Bozok says, The Afternoon of a Faun is an absolutely beautiful composition, but unconvincing rose completely ruined it for me. Such a shame. Ah, that is a shame. That is a shame. And Alex says, it smells so fascinating, old and new at the same time. A masterpiece. Yeah, I agree with that. Sounds like something a classy leprechaun would wear, says K. Dot. Rachel says, Gavin, rudest Greek pottery is hilarious. Well, I missed... The comments are going by so quickly today that I can only see a few. I'm going to have to go back and reread them. Thomas says, also, I just got 4 bottles of Voyageur in cellophane boxes, and I think they're quite old and they're great. So we're still on Jean Patou. No Sécrétion Magnifique, says Mia M. Well, that is the Eldo that I've gone for, but Sécrétion is a must try, absolutely. And the final one for this video, before we take a couple of minutes break and hope the audio is still working and do part 2. This is going back a little bit. When I looked at this brand, because I had to include something from this brand, one of my favorite brands, even though maybe in recent years their output has been a little bit dubious. I went to see what they released in this century, and then when this name came up, I thought, okay, well, that's a no-brainer. It has obviously got to be this one. And there were a few situations where I thought, where everything aligned, the success aligned, the acclaim aligned, my personal choice aligned, and the best fit was actually quite easy to find. So this is from 2004 from Monsieur Bertrand Duchaufour, very, very, very prolific over the last 25 years and has given us extremely gorgeous, life-changing compositions. From Olfactory says this series is essentially gospel for perfume fans. Well, maybe it'll turn out to be if we also have lots of discussions about what should have been included. Anyway, Dushan, Timbuktu, spaced out Timbuktu, absolutely. From L'Artisan Parfumeur, this is, of course, the legendary Timbuktu. It has become an absolute modern classic. You know, Michael Edwards included it in the update of his book. He did the same with Portrait of a Lady. You know, there are not many scents that can genuinely claim to have become modern classics, and it's beautiful. I'm lucky enough here to have an oldish bottle, but I have a newer one as well, and it's absolutely fine, just as good. This one, I don't wear this enough. It's so you think it's easy to describe, and actually you realise that it kind of contradicts what you're describing, because you want to say that it's incensey and it's woody, but then you think, how can it be woody when it also smells so luminous and translucent? And it was one of the first perfumes to do this, to take this kind of woody, cedary, frankincense-y idea, but just give you the impression that these materials have been created, you know, out of glass. They let tons and tons of light in without losing their own identity somehow. Like the best Duchaufour compositions, it's got a gorgeous frankincense note. There's something really, really meditative, spiritual about it. And I guess it's the cypriol note here, the papyrus material, which is sort of leathery, maybe a bit smoky, maybe a bit burnt. That gives Timbuktu its main personality, the key to its personality. It's really, really good. Hedonist Austero says, my first live. You've chosen a good one. Been following you for about a year. Thank you very much, and love your channel. Greetings from Guatemala. Oh wow, what time is it over there? I suppose not too early. Passage d'Enfer is my favourite from that brand, says Omar. Yeah, really beautiful Olivia Jacobetti composition. That's a really interesting choice, says Rachel. One of the keys for this effect, says Constantin, is the Magnolan. Ah, see, that's not a material that I'm familiar with. Hard to pick a favourite from this brand, says Rachel. Yes. And also a lot of my favourites have been, again, discontinued, like Duchaufour's own Nuit de Tuberose. Really, really beautiful tuberose scent is gone. Okay, I think the gremlins have been on our side so far. I'm going to switch off and let YouTube do its thing for a little bit, but we will be back in 2 minutes with part 2 of our rundown of the best 25 perfumes of the 21st century so far. For now, thank you for watching. I will see you in a bit. Bye now.